as my soul enjoys them, so that I can give you a blessing before I die. Rebecca hears this and says, Jacob has to get the blessing of the eldest. And she has a conversation with Jacob, and she says, you got to put on some, hairy skin. Is there milk?
Oh, you did want milk.
I do.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. No sugar, milk. Thank you. And I'll give you, the meat, and it will look like you just hunted, and you'll say that you're Esau. So that's what happens, and Jacob gets the blessing that Isaac intended for Esau. So we're going to look at that moment where he's so entirely heartbroken. I don't know what's going on the screen. Oh, here, zoom. There we go. So that's what I want to start with you today, is to look at that scene and consider Esau's cry and its echoes throughout the Torah. Clear? Everybody on board? More or less? Great. Okay, so.
Adonai doesn't allow for mistakes.
Adonai doesn't allow for mistakes? What book have you been reading? This whole book is about mistakes.
Yeah, this is a big one. I mean, Jacob made a mistake.
Okay, hold that. We got to get to the text. Hold it. Yes, there are huge consequences, and there's repercussions, consequences, everything. Vayas gam hu mat'amim. So Esav also brings delicacies, meat delicacies. Vayavei la'aviv, and he brought it to his father. Vayomer la'aviv, and he said to his father, Yakum aviv v'yochal. Rise up, my father, and eat. Mitzed beno, from your son's gain, ba'avur tivarchani nafshecha, so that your soul will bless me. And here they translate it as, you can give me your innermost blessing. Vayomer lo Yitzchak aviv mi'ata, and Yitzchak, his father, says, who are you? So throughout the scene with Jacob, he keeps saying, who are you, my son? And Jacob says, I am Esau. Right? So now he's completely confused, right? Now he hears the voice of Esau and like, what's going on? Vayomer, and he said, Ani bincha, I am your son, Bechorcha, your oldest, Esau. Vayecharad Yitzchak charada gidola, and Isaac was seized with a great trembling. Adma'od, a lot, exceedingly. Vayomer, mi efo hu hatzat sayed v'yaveli. And who was that guy who brought me hunted meats? And I ate v'ochal mikol, and I ate all of it, I guess. B'terem tavo v'avarchehu.
Come here.
This is a little confusing. Before you came, and I ate it. Gam v'avarchehu, and I blessed him. Gam baruch yeh, and he will be blessed, because there's a sense of, you don't take blessing back. That's it, right? I blessed him. He is blessed. My words are immutable. Hishmoa Esav Tivrei Aviv, and when Esau heard the words of his father, and he cried a great cry, umara and bitter, ad ma'od, until a lot. Just translating it literally. So he let out a big, bitter cry, exceedingly big, bitter cry. Vayomer la'aviv, and he said to his father, Barcheni gam ani avi. He said to his father, bless me too, my father. Vayomer, achecha b'mirma, achicha b'mirah. Your brother came in deception, guile. Vayikach birchatecha, and he took your blessing. Vayomer hachi kara shemo Yaakov yagveni zeh ha'mayim et bechoroti lakach v'hinei ata lakach birchati. Vayomer, hello, atzalcha li bracha. So Esau said, was he then named Jacob that he might supplant me these two times? Because Jacob, Yaakov, comes to the word heel. So he's been a heel. And here it seems to indicate supplanting as well. First, he took away my birthright, and now he's taken away my blessing. It's interesting, Esau makes a distinction between the two. But you all remember the scene where Esau comes in from hunting and he's famished, and Jacob is eating his lentils, right, his red lentils. And Esau says, give me some lentils. He goes, I will, if you sell me your birthright. And Esau says, well, what do I need with my birthright? Well, I'm going to die. So he sells his birthright for a mess of lentils. Okay. Vaya'an Yitzchak vayomer le'esav, hen gevir samti lach. And Yitzchak answered him, responded to him, and said to Esav, I put him as boss of you, basically, Gvir, master of you. Ve'kol natati lo la'avadim. And all his brothers, and I have given all his brothers for servants. He doesn't have any other brothers, so it's a little confusing. But the Dagan, the Tirosh, smachtiv, and sustained him with grain and wine. What then can I still do for you, my son? Okay, so this is the verse that gets me more than anything else in almost the entire Torah, if not the entire Torah. Vayomer Esav el Aviv, and Esav said to his father, do you only have one blessing? Barcheni gam ani avi, bless me too, father. Esav karo vayaf, and Esau raised up his voice.
Heartbreaking scene.
It's the most heartbreaking scene. Vaya'an Yitzchak avi vayomer alav, and Yitzchak, his father, responded to him and said to him, Hinei mishmanei haaretz yiyeh moshavecha mital hashamayim me'al. And Esau said to his father, and his father Isaac answered to him, see, your abode shall enjoy the fat of the earth and the dew of heaven above. Yet by your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restive, you shall break his yoke. Okay, so that's the primary scene. That's the scene that I'm spinning off of. And I want to show how Esau's cry here is refracted in a sense forward and also backwards. What? I am? It's not close at all. Look. I got it.
I spilled coffee on.
I got it. Okay, so here's the next parsha, and let's see what happens. So in the next parsha, what happens? Jacob runs away from home because his brother wants to kill him, right? And where does he go? He goes to his mother's hometown, Haran. Also, his grandfather's hometown, because Jacob was from Ur, but then his whole family went to Haran. So this is like it's like a place that they go back to, especially to get wives. That's also that's where Rebecca was from, as I just said. And he comes to a well, of course, because the well was the site of courtship. And he sees Rachel, and somehow something happens to him. And Vayishak Yaakov Rachel, and he kisses Rachel. I don't see any consent here, but he kisses Rachel. Vayisa et kolo, and he raises up his voice, and he cries. So what is he doing at that well, crying? What is going on? Why is he crying here? So there are all kinds of opinions. Here's Rashi on that verse. Because he saw, with Holy Spirit, a moment of prophecy, that she's not going to be buried with him. Why? because when they go from Haran, they get stuck in Haran for many years, right? They live with Rachel's father, Laban, or Rachel and Leah's father, Laban. And then when they're on their way back to Canaan, she gives birth to Benjamin and she dies, right? Bethlehem, on the way, something like that. So he's sad because ultimately they're not going to be together. And maybe he foresees her early death. So, okay, so that's why he's crying. Another opinion, this is wild.
That's what Rashi says. Right?
That's what Rashi says.
Yeah.
Well, that's Rashi, that's what Rashi says based on the Midrash.
Okay.
How does Rashi make the connection?
Great question. How does Rashi make the connection? So what the Midrash does is sort of weaves behind the scenes. So they know that she dies a tragic early death, right? And she knows, and the Midrash just kind of ties, like, why would he be crying here? Oh, that's a reason he could cry.
Yes. I mean, if
It's
it's
an
your
imagination.
imagination.
It's imagination. It's weaving together the backstory.
Give him flavor.
Give it flavor, Joe says. We're going to see more of that weaving in a minute, Alice. It's going to be even more weaving. Hold on. So another opinion. Lefi sheba biyadayim rekaniyot, because he came with empty hands. Now remember, the servant of his grandfather, who found his mother, who often is referred to as Eliezer, right, also at a well, came with gold and silver and jewelry and nice clothes to wear, and he's come with nothing. Now we're going to be told why he comes with nothing, which is really an interesting midrash, another weaving together, saying, Eliezer Eved Avi Abba Hayubi Adayim Nizamim Usmidim Umigdanot Bani Ein Biadi Klum. So Eliezer, the servant of my father, came with all this, gold and jewelry and precious items. And what?
Somebody said it's hard to hear.
Oh, is it hard to hear?
Yeah, just keep your head forward towards the mic. So, and also,
I can't hear you at all.
Oh, you can't hear me at all? Oh, that's so weird. Settings.
I can't hear you.
Okay, that's very strange. Which is weird. My internal mic is
I don't know what to do, Carolyn.
Yeah,
Put something in the chat because I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
We can hear you very loudly.
Okay, one second. Let me contact.
Oh, that's beautiful, Mark. Mark, what you're saying here is also going to be echoed in one of the comments. The Japanese expression for the beautiful sadness of things, mono no aware. We cry in joyful moments because we know they will pass. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, Jay, I didn't see your chat. It's hard to hear. Okay, so let me see. Perhaps when she turns her head. Oh, is it me turning my head?
She's at JTS.
She's at JTS. Okay, that's not good. Can you, what are the options here? Does this help? Raise your hand if this helps. Yes? Excellent. Okay, if I turn my head this way, how's that? Is that all right? It's not so good.
You want to put it right in front of you?
Oh, both of them. Okay.
Maybe I'll three.
What happened to our owl? Oh, no, there it is. Okay, okay, don't move anyone.
Okay.
So let's see now. Okay, Alex, ready for this midrash?
Yes.
So, Lefisha Radat Eliphaz. So the son of Esau. Esau. I don't know why I have a hang up with that word in English.
Probably because you know Spanish and.
Yeah, I'm confused. Okay. Esau. Okay, Esau. So Eliphaz, the son of Esau, ran after Yaakov at the command of his father, the mitzvat aviv, acharav lahargo, to kill him. Because remember, Esau wants to kill him. So he's running after him to catch him and kill him. Ulefi shegadal Eliphaz b'cheiko shel Yitzchak. But since Eliphaz kind of grew up on the lap of Isaac, right? So Isaac kind of cared for his grandson. Mashach yadav, he withheld his, the violence of his hands. Amarlo, Eliphaz said to Jacob, Ma eseh l'tzivui shel Abba. What am I going to do about the command of my father? Yaakov said, because he was commanded, right? He has to honor his father here. Amarlo Yaakov told Masha biadi. Yaakov said, take everything in my hand. Ve'ani chashuv kemet. And a poor person is thought of like a dead person. In other words, he doesn't have to lie to his father. Eliphaz doesn't have to lie to his father because he'll take everything that Jacob has, and Jacob will be completely poor and empty-handed. And he could say he killed him because now he's poor, and a poor person is likened to a dead person. Does everyone get that crazy logic?
No. Sorry.
He takes everything that Jacob has,
Right.
and because a poor person is considered like a dead person, he could tell his father, I killed Jacob.
Eliphaz takes everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay?
Eliphaz.
So you see,
Esau's
Alex,
son.
an example of that. So it's like creating a backstory. So they're wanting to know, so what generates the backstory is, why does Jacob cry at that moment? So I have to tell a story to explain that, and this explains it. That's why he cries. Okay. Okay, so now Sforno, the Italian commentator, I guess in medieval times, says, Isaac Kolovayef. Al Shalo Zachalatz Las'et Ota B'Norav. He could have married her when he was a young man. They could have married. V'Hayulo La'et Kazot B'nei Nurim. They would have had young adults already. Like what? I could have had a V8, right? I could have married her 20 years ago. I think he's supposed to be 40 here. Yeah, okay. So that's, okay, now, this relates a little bit to what Mark was saying. Vayef, he cried. He wept. Zohi b'chiyah.
I'm sorry, that last comment, that Italian.
Yeah.
I'm sure, just to get my head, just understand that a little bit.
Yeah.
He was saying, that Jacob's full of regret.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly. He's full of regret. Why did I marry her earlier? What took so long? What have I been doing with my life? I stayed home like a mama's boy, right? And he was Rebecca's favorite. Okay, so here Radak Vayev, Zohi b'chiyah shel simcha. This is the crying of joy. Umeirov ahavav, and from so much love, hey mit halev, sort of overcame the heart. Okay, so this is, here's my beloved, and I am full of tears. So now let me say, and this was in my sermon last night, so for those of you who weren't there, these words, Vayisa et kolo vayef, are the same exact words that Esav used, as you can see above, right? Vayisa Esav kolo vayef. So the Torah is now using words to describe Yaakov's tears that they used to describe Esau's tears. So my thesis, or one interpretation, another interpretation, davar acher, is that at this moment he's finally feeling his brother's pain and finally realizing what he did to his family, taking him back to that shadow. Right? So what I said last night was he was in such survival mode until that moment he couldn't feel a thing. But now that he finds love and there's a well and a promise of a home, he's able to melt a little bit.
I like that one.
You like that
your
one? I like that one.
Yeah.
Shalom, Tomas. Is there an extra sheet for Tomas? Oh, yeah. Right. Okay, so now let's go backwards and look at more tears. So this whole thing starts because Yitzchak loses his capacity for sight, right? So at the beginning of 27, verse 1, Vayihi, and now we're in, I thought I numbered the sources. Genesis 27:1. Vayihi ki zaken Yitzchak v'tichena einav meraot. When Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, so they had dimmed. Vayikra et Esav, and he called he called Esau, his oldest son, Beno Agadol, Vayomer Elav Bini, and he said to him, Bini, my son. Vayomer Elav Hineni, and he said, Hineni. So this is really interesting because it also echoes the language of the Akedah in Genesis 22, the binding of Isaac. Bini, Hineni, Avi. Okay, so now what is the Midrash? How does the Midrash weave a story about why Isaac's eyes were dimmed? They say, Mikoach otah r'iyah, from the power of that sight. Shebisha'a she'akad Avraham Avinu et beno al gabei hamizbeach bahu malachei hasharei. So at the moment, so the power of that sight for the angels, that at the moment that Abraham bound, our father bound his son on the altar, the angels cried, like the angels of the heavens cried, the ministering angels cried. And they give a proof text from Isaiah, behold, their angels cry outside. Hen alam tza'aku chutza. Dinashru d'ma'ot me'enehem, and tears streamed from their eyes and fell into Isaac's eyes, l'toch einav. V'hayu reshumot b'toch einav, and they sort of made an imprint in his eyes. The kevan shehizkin, and when he got old, kahu einav, his eyes dimmed. Hadu d'chtiv, as it is written, vayhi yizaken yitzchak. So, and it was when Isaac was old that his eyes were dimmed. So you see, in a way, this whole tragedy, according to the rabbis, was, was propelled or was made possible by Isaac's dim eyes from the crying of the angels. So it all started with these tears. Okay. Now, what's the first cry in Genesis? Where does all this crying come from? So the first cry in Genesis is actually Hagar. So this is Hagar when she's expelled from Abraham and Sarah's house the second time, and she has Yishmael, and Yishmael almost dies of thirst. Asher Chaim, do you feel like reading this? Genesis 21.
Vayichlu hamayim min hachemet. The water ran out.
Oh, we can't hear Asher Chaim?
Can't hear me.
I don't see him.
Isn't he on the bottom of your screen?
Oh, yeah, you're right. There you are. Did you unmute?
I unmuted.
Can't hear you?
We can hear
Oh,
it.
Caroline, can we do something about that?
I can be heard within the confines of the Zoom room. We can pass notes about the teacher, and the teacher won't hear us.
All right, forget it. I'll just read.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, if Caroline, if Eden could come back, that would be great because there are all kinds of issues here. Or Victor, for that matter, whoever can help me with this. Okay, so here's what happens in Genesis 21. Vayichlu hamayim min hachemet, hachemet, v'tashlech et hayeled tachat echad hatzichim. So there they are. They're in the wilderness. They've been banished. And Abraham gives Hagar a little bit of water, a little bit of bread, and it ran out, right? And Hagar tosses her child under a bush. Telech b'tashev la mineged harchek k'mitachavei keshet ki amra al er'eh b'mot hayele v'teshev mineged v'tisa et kola v'tef. She went and sat down at a distance, a bow shot away, for she thought, let me not look on as the child dies. And sitting thus afar, she burst into tears. And that's, again, the same exact phrase now used for Esau and used for Yaakov. So you see, we're kind of following the phrase. This is called, again, we've discussed this before, intertextuality, seeing the different contexts in which this phrase appears and making sense of it. Vayishma Elohim et Kohanar, and God hears the voice of the lad. Vayikram Malach Elohim El Hagar, and an angel of Elohim called to Hagar from the heavens, min hashamayim, vayomer lo, and said to her, Malach Hagar, what's your problem, Hagar? I'm like, oh my God. Al tir'i, don't be afraid. Hishama Elohim El Kohanar. Don't be afraid because God heard the voice of the lad, Asher Husham, where he is. The cry of the boy, where he is. So it all seems to start with the cry of the stranger. And this is kind of amazing to me because Hagar is Hagar, right? Hagar means the stranger. And the voice of the stranger underlies our entire legal and ethical code. Not everything, obviously, but 36 times are we to remember the stranger and take care of the stranger and the widow and the orphan because we were strangers in the land of Egypt, is it said in the rest of the Torah. So this is the beginning. This is the stranger's cry. Okay, so the stranger's cry resounds. Okay.
Except God heard the cry of the boy, but it wasn't the boy who cried.
It's true. It's true. I noticed that, but since it wasn't our topic, I did not raise it. But yes, it's interesting. God heard the cry of the boy, and it was Hagar who was crying. But God seemed to go straight to the problem and solve the reason she was crying, which is that her child was going to die. But yes, it's confusing. Do you have an interpretation for that?
I have a question.
Wait, hold on one second, Rachel.
I'll wait.
Paul's thinking.
Not yet.
I can
No.
hear him thinking.
No. Yet another confusing. We are left, one of the great questions in my mind of all this is that we are left with far more questions than we are answers.
We are always left with more questions than answers.
And
That's why this is like a frustrating enterprise.
right. So then the question becomes, why is it either created by God or by some other collection wants it to be that way?
Why we're always left agitated with questions unanswered. I think I'm not going to answer that question.
Well, so here's my answer.
Okay, wait, Paul's on a riff. Paul has now an answer. Rachel, you're going to have to wait for a while.
That the underlying question that we are grappling with is A, is there a God? B, is God fallible? And what the Torah wants us to profoundly understand is that there is a God, but God is fallible. And what we are grappling with in our own fallibility is the fundamental fallibility.
Okay, so the last midrash takes that on directly, but it's not yet our topic. Okay, hold on one second. I think we can't hear you online, so I think I can't take questions, but you can put your comments in the chat until we get our technical difficulties straightened out. So put your comments in the chat and I will look at them in a minute. Okay, Rachel.
Okay. I
I'll
think
stop my share for a
that
minute.
Esau was not intellectually at par. He did not understand that if he sold his birthright, then when the time came for the blessing, there would be a big problem. He is childlike. And why the heck didn't God take care of him? The baby of Hagar's child, right? Hagar, I'm blocking out the name. The baby, Ishmael, is a baby. He has no intellectual content yet. And he's crying.
He has no what?
He has no intellectual content. It's a baby, it's not developed. And God says, don't worry, I'm going to take care of him. This baby will not die. Esau is a baby. He doesn't understand any kind of logic. He doesn't understand.
But why do you think that about Esau? Why do you think that? Why do you think he doesn't have intellectual capacity?
Because he doesn't understand simple things like,
Like what?
okay, I'm selling you my birthright, give me the beans. That's pretty
No, but when you-
primitive. He doesn't understand. And.
Wait, hold on.
You can challenge it, but.
Calm down, everybody.
And,
Wait, I got your back.
and if God has the capacity to hear the baby and save it, God has the capacity to save this poor Esau who's never going to function. And really, Jacob's job should be to take care of his brother. That's my
So
thesis.
he's a hapless soul. God should have stepped in and Jacob should have stepped in.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And he didn't. Wait, Craig, are you going to help us with the? So we can't hear people online. Jill, do you want to try to talk and we'll see what happens?
Testing.
Isn't Rivka the prime mover here? Why are we?
Yes, can you hear me okay? Hello? Can you hear me?
We
Testing,
can hear you on
hello?
the Zoom, but I don't think they can hear you in the room.
Are we using your laptop? Do you know which laptop we're using?
We're using this laptop. We're also using.
Eden set it up.
We're also using. Eden set it up.
Oh, can I see the laptop?
Here, and there's this. Look.
Oh, sweet.
Very sweet. Jill's try to talk. Meanwhile, I'm going to read things in the chat. Okay.
Hello? Okay, did you
Why
hear
do we
me?
assume Ishmael
No.
is crying? Exactly. We don't. We shouldn't assume Ishmael is crying. That's right.
Can I ask you a question?
Well, yeah.
We're here, no, I just want to say, we're hearing people very faintly.
Yeah.
Could it be a volume problem? I'm
It
hearing them go
Can
along.
we, so how do we make it
Turn
louder?
us behind a little bit, maybe it's just a volume problem.
Let me check. It might be a volume issue. Let me check the television.
Okay.
I'm hearing them.
I'm going to try to see where the audio is coming out on the speaker and audio settings.
What's that red?
Okay, let Craig do his job and we're going to do Torah. Okay, there is no evidence, Mark Allen Horn says, for Esau being simple. He becomes as powerful as Jacob when they meet at the river. I'm kind of on Mark's side, but there's like a whole contingency here who think Esau is simple.
I totally back Rachel.
What? You back her?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, and furthermore, I
Wait,
said.
Rachel. Other people talking now. Okay, Joe, what's the evidence? I want to know what the evidence is.
But he's definitely jubilant, he's definitely immature. The fact that he sells something and then he cries about it.
Yeah.
Come on.
Okay,
Bottom line, he's the instigator of here.
right. So
Oh, yes,
Okay.
but.
no more conversation. Okay. So what happens there, right, when he comes from the field and he's starving, so either he's starving or he's exaggerating, he's not really starving.
Yeah.
Right? He's just like, oh my God, I'm so hungry, I'm so famished, I have to eat, I'll do anything. So it's sort of almost like an addict's consciousness, right? I'm focused on this, no matter what the cost is to myself or others.
That's spiritually mature, right?
Yeah, it is spiritually mature, but I'm sure we're all there at some point, especially when we're young people.
He didn't value.
No, he didn't. There are times when I'm very focused on like, oh my God, chocolate mousse or whatever. Like, doesn't matter what's in my way. I get like that. That was his moment. He sold, hold on. We have a hybrid class. We need to be respectful of the people up there. So I need one person to speak at a time. Hold on, Nikki. Okay, I'm going to come to you. So, and of course I forgot my phone then.
Chocolate mousse.
Chocolate.
We're all there.
We all get impulsive. We all, at times all sell the future for the sake of the moment. It's not a good moment. It's not admirable, but it may not be the sum of who he is. But it may be. So here's to go in a different direction, davar acher, is I once taught this thing that the chosen sons are the ones, certainly in Jacob's case, in terms of Esau, who can strategize and see the future. Because what God is trying to do in this book is create a future. Is create an Israelite family and create generations. Okay, David, who has not spoken. Yeah.
If you want to.
Oh, Nikki, I'm sorry, Nikki. Thank you, David.
Pardon? Yeah, can you check to see if we can hear it?
Okay, wait, Nikki, hold on one second. Someone, Asha Chaim, could you say something so we can see if we can hear you?
Okay, audio testing. Audio testing.
So we could hear everything. Can we hear everything finally?
We can, thank you. Okay.
Oh, God bless. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Craig. Okay, there are two comments in the room, and then Jill, and then I want to get back because we need to make one more point here.
Esau does not expect his brother to behave the way he does. It's his brother.
Yeah.
So, for his brother to be serious about taking away his birthright is preposterous.
He doesn't expect his brother to follow through. That's what you're saying. Okay. All right. So he doesn't understand the consequences of his actions, which actually underlines their point that he's spiritually immature. Excellent. Okay, David.
Two quick points. First thing on what you were saying, I think the whole point of Genesis is almost a reordering of what existed in the ancient Middle East, which was the birthright. So you always want that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a whole
Absolutely.
dismantling.
Yes.
But the main thing that I want to jump on what Paul says, this is Rebecca's story. This goes with last week too. Rebecca looked up and saw Isaac. I'm sorry, Jacob. And this is, you have the feeling that there's an agency, or Rebecca is, she's on a mission, whether it's with God or she's with that or something like that, but she, she's the code.
Yeah. So what David's saying is like, wait a second. Even if Esau didn't sell his birthright, Rebecca had an oracle from God, right? There's an elder, like, churning in her belly, right? Churning in her womb, and she goes to seek an oracle, and God says that the elder will serve the younger. So she knows what's going to happen, and she's putting that into place, you could say, right? So yes, it's all her fault. Yes.
It's all, and Esau's pain may be not having his mother's blood.
And each Isaac has his favorite, and it's Esau, and Rebecca has her favorite, and it's Jacob.
So, Rabbi, we have permission to blame it on the women?
Short answer, no.
Hey, Rabbi Dan, can you repeat that, please? What he said? Yeah.
Oswaldo says, so Rabbi, do we have permission to blame it on the women? And I said, no. Okay, Jill, you've been waiting so patiently. Jill, and then we're going on.
Yeah, just based on a point that was made before about kind of God having flaws, I really almost cringe at that. No offense to the person who said it, because because God made us, so then through the very mechanism that God made us, we're now able to step in God's place and say that God, I don't know, I think that the Torah gives us all kinds of real life dilemmas and wants to see our response and reaction to it so that we can make some similar choices and some different choices, but gives us the reason why
Jill, we're losing you. We're losing you. I'm sorry.
Okay, here we go. The reason why it's so rich for discussion is because there are so many ways to push back and respond differently in our lives. And there's also ways to emulate Torah. And so it gives us this fertile ground to kind of recreate it on a daily basis, but I don't think that it's because God's flawed. I think it's because God knew in God's infinite wisdom that if that the kind of the intelligent design of the world is to kind of see how we make decisions. And so the Torah is a jumping off point for us to make decisions about how we're going to, live our life.
Jill, thank you. Thank you. And that's echoed in the famous saying from the wisdom of the fathers, so
what is what in English?
What does that mean, please? Yeah, what does that mean?
Turn it over and over, meaning the Torah, because everything is in it, right? So we have the Torah because all of life is reflected in it, for good and for bad. Okay.
Thank you.
Quick comment while I Everyone
For a second
mute.
to, can we go back for
Yeah.
a second to the,
I'm going to screen share. as I
blessing
go.
given under false pretense?
Yes.
And why you said he can't, he says to Esau, I can't take back the blessing.
Yeah.
Even though it was given under false pretense. If we look
Yeah.
at sort of modern notions of
Yeah.
contract law.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, something given under, sorry, I'm a lawyer.
No, that's okay.
Something done under, you know, through fraud would be able to be unwound.
Yeah.
And why is it that the blessing can't
Yeah.
be unwound?
Yeah. That's a great question. I don't know exactly, but there are different points in the Torah where blessing is given or something is said and can't be taken back. It's like immutable. Let me look into that and say more about it, because that's not quite satisfying. But that's the underlying assumption here. That's it. Gave you the blessing, it's done.
Such a
But also-
too.
Okay, I'm going on. I'm sorry, I'm going on. Okay. So thank you so much, Tony, for that permission. I really appreciate it. Okay. Okay, Asher Chaim, Genesis 36.
ותמנע הייתה פלגש לאליפז בן עשיו.
No, I'm sorry, the one before him. 36, 1 through 4.
ואלה תולדות עשיו הוא אדום. These are the generations or progeny of Esav, who is also known as Red. Esav לקח את נשיו מבנות Canaan. Esav took wives from the daughters of Canaan. את עדה בת אילון החיתי ואת אהוליבמה בת ענה בת צבעון החיבי. Ada, daughter of Elon the Hittite, Oholivama, daughter of Anna, daughter of Tzivon the Hivite. Viet Bosmat bat Yishmael, Achot Nevayot, and Bosmat, daughter of Ishmael, sister of Nevayot. Vatelet Ada le'esav et Eliphaz uvosmat yalda et Reuel. Ada birthed for Esav Eliphaz, and Bosmat birthed Reuel.
Okay, now one more. Let's see what happened to Timnah.
ותמנע הייתה פילגש לאליפז בן עשיו, ותלד לאליפז את עמלק, אלה בני עדה אשת עשיו. Timnah was a concubine to Eliphaz, son of Esav, and she birthed for Eliphaz Amalek, boo hissed. These are the offspring of Ada, wife of Esav.
Okay, Amalek, of course, is the progenitor of Haman, right? And the archetypal evil enemy of the children of Israel. So let's see what happens to Timnah, who birthed Amalek.
Is that Ishmael the same one?
Keep going.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Wait, what verse is Ishmael in? Oh, I see. And also Basmat, daughter of Yishmael. I think so. Okay, so now we're in Sanhedrin 99b. Do you want to go on, Asher Chaim?
Do you want the Hebrew or find a reader for English only?
Okay, I'll find an English reader in the room.
Timnah was the daughter of kings, as it is written, the chief of Lotan, and the chief of Timnah, and chief is a member of a monarchy, albeit without a crown.
So it says that Timnah is the daughter of kings, but then the word aloof, chief, is used. So they're saying, what kind of kings? What are you talking about? So it must be kings without a crown, without an outward sign. But that's not really the point. Here comes the point.
That is why they are called chief and not king. Timnah sought to convert. She came before Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they did not accept her. She went and became a concubine of Eliphaz, son of Esau, and said, referring to herself, it is preferable that she will be a maidservant for this nation, and she will not be a noblewoman for another nation.
In other words, she wanted to be part of the people of Israel. That's what she wanted. She wanted to convert, even if it would lower her status.
Ultimately, Amalek, son of Eliphaz, emerged from her, and that tribe afflicted the Jewish people. What is the reason that the Jewish people were punished by suffering at the hand of Amalek? It is due to the fact that they should not have rejected her when she sought to convert. Therefore, the verse is significant.
So it's all the fault of the children of Israel because our forefathers rejected a convert, a potential convert. Okay, one more on that that's even more harif, even more sort of strong. Yes. Okay, so now here's another refraction, so to speak, of Esav's cry, and it's in the book of Esther. So it says here in chapter 4, Mordechai yada eko asher na'asa, and Mordechai found out everything that was done. In other words, Haman had convinced the king to kill all the Jews. Vayikra Mordechai et begadav, and he ripped his clothing. Vayibasak ve'efer, and he dressed in sackcloth and ashes. Vayitzei b'toch ha'ir, and he went into the town. Vayizak za'aka dola umara, and he cried a bitter cry. Now, even though there's one letter difference, because Esav vayitzak za'aka gdola umara, it's almost the same phrase. And the rabbis, and you'll see in the Talmud, connect the two phrases. So he went out through the city, crying out loudly and bitterly. So another, again, and the same phrase, except for that letter, which is often interchangeable, the Zayin and the Tzadi, same phrase as used for Esau's cry. Right? Wow. So what's it doing here? So Genesis Rabbah weaves some more and tells us what it's doing here, which actually also takes us back to Paul's question, Paul's comments. Okay. Kishmo Esav et divrei aviv, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Kol mishahu omer she'akadosh baruch hu vatran, hu yitvatrun b'nei ma'ohi. This is actually a little funny. So Rabbi Chanina is saying, in general, like anyone who says that the God, the blessed be Holy One, is like not really exacting God's due, like really not enacting justice in this world, which also relates to Rachel's point. Like, what do you mean, where is God? What's going on here? So anyone who says that, their own intestines should be, like, if you say God's lax, your own intestines should be lax, right?
So I need to make sure. I got some work to do. Make sure my intestines do not.
Ella, ma'arich apei v'gavei delay. Instead, God sort of, it's like a long game, and then he takes his due later on. So here's an example. V'aka achat tizik Yaakov Esav. When Esav heard the words of his father, he cried out. So now we're going back to Esav's cry. As it says, Kishmo Esav et divrei aviv vayizak za'aka. When Esav heard the words of his father and he cried a cry. The Hechan Nifralo, and when did God take God's due? The Shushan Habira, in the capital of Shushan, when Mordechai learned what happened, as it says, Vayizak Za'aka Gdola Mara Ad Ma'od, and then they give this proof text, the beginning of this chapter, when Mordechai cried out an exceedingly loud and bitter cry. In other words, you think our forefather Jacob got away with all this, but he didn't. But when did God exact God's due? Here in the book of Esther. Not till here. It's a rough one. It's a really harsh one.
Very harsh.
What?
Very harsh.
Very harsh. Okay, now I'm only taking people who raise their hands, like Rob, my good student in the corner. And I'm also taking people who have not spoken yet. Joe, what's the problem?
I'm taking this a little space. You have to take this not so deep.
I have to take it not so deep?
No, what this Medrash just said.
I take it not deep?
I mean, let's not make it all make sense now. Based upon what Jacob did by selling the brachos, by buying the blessings, and now back in the story.
It's an angle.
Possibly everybody's going to be killed. There's
Okay.
little.
Okay, Joe. It's an angle on the story and making sense of why this verse is here. I'm not saying it's the only way to look at it. It's an interesting angle, and it's interesting that the rabbis would say it. It's a little tight.
Like, it's tit for tat.
Tidy. It is tidy. It is tidy. But this also responds to Paul like, all right, I want a little tidiness. This is tidy. Feels too tidy, right? It's like, we know the world doesn't really work like that. But maybe at some level it does. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, Rob.
The reason I believe that God gave a Torah at Mount Sinai is because this family is so screwed up that no mortal could ever write this in the first chapter. It's so, and it sets in motion all the terrible things that happened to the Jewish people throughout history. The Esau story that I heard was that Esau came from Abraham's burial. Abraham had passed, and they were eating lentils, which is a sign of eating out on morning because it's round. And he was so distraught over the death of Abraham that he looked at him as like he was immortal, that his birthright meant nothing. He gave away Judaism. And instead of the family bringing Abraham back into the fold with their 4 mothers and 3 fathers, he was supposed to be the 4th father. Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Esau. That's what was supposed to happen. The family threw him out, basically, and then all that followed was complete disaster for the Jewish people. So it was the reason no person would write this is because these are the people we admire the most. Who would show all that dirty laundry in the first chapter?
So I want to say a few things about this. So scholars do know that there are other peoples who start great mythic heroes and golden ages and we start at the bottom. That's really interesting. And to me, it's one of the reasons I love the book. Now, there was something else I was going to say.
That's why we love Judaism.
The other thing is, it relates to Paul's point from before. So, how many of these threads do we tie up, right? How tidy should it be? So the rabbis make it really tidy. Like they see a name they don't understand, they say, oh, this person must be that person. But they never saw the name before. So they're always trying to weave and make the world make sense. Now, we can do that or not do that. It's a kind of game. It's a kind of interpretive game, right? Making the world make sense and connecting all the dots and all the lines. Now, what's interesting to me is to look at the genesis of this cry backwards and forwards and make sense of it anew. We don't have to make sense of it like the rabbis made sense of it. Like Joe says, don't take it too seriously. I take it very seriously, but it doesn't mean I need to adopt their perspective. Joe's saying yes, okay. Yeah, Tony and then Marilyn. Okay.
From a strict seriously to perspective, show and tell. I'm reminded of one of the great sayings of Suzuki Roshi in that classic Zen line, Beginner's Mind, where he says, if you have an unruly being, an unruly horse, build a more spacious pasture beforehand, which is kind of somewhat the opposite of tying all the loose. There's a tension, a creative tension between our desire for order.
No, it's not. I'll tell you why. Because they're creating a pasture in which verses in the Torah don't make sense. So they create a context big enough so that they do make sense. So they're creating a big pasture.
But whatever sense, one of them said.
And maybe they're trying to tame the unruly horse.
Maybe, but that's we're talking. You might end up bumping into your id kid if you try to, and that's a much bigger. As a seasoned psychiatrist, I can say that's a much bigger task than any of us.
Well, I think the rabbi is actually pretty wild. If you study the Talmud especially, and even the Midrash, it's like very imaginative.
I think that
and
masters are wild.
Forget about the Hasidic masters. I'm not talking about Hasidic. That's something different. I'm not talking about them. They get the Hasidic masters sometimes here overshadow everything else, and the rabbis are just as wild as the Hasidic masters, and just as spiritual. It's just a different age, a different stage. So I'm not talking about Kabbalah. I'm talking about the spirituality and the wildness of the rabbis. Okay, now I'm only taking people who haven't spoken at this moment. Marilyn.
Wait, there was somebody.
Marilyn.
Yes, so I wasn't sure if you were doing this on purpose, but connecting Amalek um, right to Mordecai. But I heard like a few years ago this amazing teaching looking at, you know, Haman and that story and bringing it right back to Esau and to Jacob and to their rift and to this, what you were talking about, that they didn't convert. So I think
Of course I'm doing it on purpose. That's what I just did. What do you mean?
well, what
You
I'm
think I did it
saying
by accident?
is, well, I don't know. This is what we're discussing. Is this accident or is this not accident? So, I mean, I think what I'm saying is you could look at it as a punishment by God, that God is taking care of it, or you could look at it as human agency, and you can say that we, like, and you did say it, right? That we did this. If you want to look like how, and of course, this is the discussion, how far back, when you look at the rift right now between Palestinians and Israelis, that say, how far back do you have to go? I mean, it's a really, really good question.
When does the story begin? Yeah.
Yeah, when does the story begin? And it's really interesting. You go back far enough.
Yeah.
There it was.
Yeah. Okay, so let me say something about what you're saying, and then Jay, I'll call you in a minute. So the Torah and the rabbis as well are really informed by this principle, midah connected midah, right? Measure for measure. And you see Jacob himself, you know, you say like, oh, God didn't punish Jacob for what he did. But Jacob's whole life was a punishment. You don't have to go to the book of Esther to see it, right? Jacob marries Rachel but gets Leah instead. Jacob's older son sell Jacob's younger son into slavery, and Jacob thinks he's dead. I mean, Jacob spends his whole entire life suffering because of what happened, because it's almost like it's a psychic house of mirrors. Like, and anyone who has generations in their family and see how things are passed down, see that things do repeat, especially, traumatic memory and how they're refracted through the generations. So even though it's tidy on one hand, and maybe too tidy, I think our psyches do work that way. If that's not, what?
We want to understand.
When you
need to understand. That's what religion is all about, is trying to find answers. It may not be the right answer.
Religion is all about trying to find answers, but now I'm saying something a little bit different, that the Torah mirrors the way the psyche works, which is things get passed down from one generation to another, especially if they're traumatic, right? There's two different mechanisms here, the trying to understand and sort of making it tidy, and then also how our psyches work, that, if there's a traumatic event in one generation, then it is passed down through other generations. And, when they say that the angels cried at the Akedah, when the rabbis say that, and then Isaac's eyes were blind, it's a different, like Freud might describe it differently, but the same mechanism that Freud is talking about, a traumatic memory being passed down. Repetition compulsion. Okay, Jay, to you.
I'll take the first of the two things I wanted to point. I wanted to pick up sort of a thread that was going on in the room. You made almost an aside about how, interestingly, Esau makes a distinction between the birthright and the blessing. And then folks in the room were saying, I would say, disparaging things about Esau's character. And if we take that seriously, one could say, and we've been having a little debate here in the chat, that what Esau really wanted was a blessing. He wanted his father's love or approval. He had a confidence of the kind of person he was that he could survive fine. He didn't need the material stuff like the land and things that go with the birthright. What he wanted was the, let's just even say, affection or the gushpanka or something from his father, that he was worthy or he was good. And so I think that also is a reflection, could be a reflection of his character.
Beautiful, thank you, thank you. Okay, Tomas.
I just wanted to pick up on that idea of agency.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe come closer to the microphones. Here.
Where's the microphone?
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, this is where I belong. On your left.
Exactly, exactly.
No, picking up on the idea of agency that we heard from one of the speakers online, that because this text seems to be haunted by two things that take away our agency. We have the inheritance from the past, the birthright, also the generational trauma, like the things that say, no, 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 this is who you are, this is your status, this is your inheritance, whether you want it or not, like you have no choice in that matter. And then things from the future that take away our agency, like, no, this is your prophecy, this is your destiny, this is what some being or even divine said is going to happen. And so our relationship to the inheritance and the prophecy that in all cases seem to take away our agency. And the reason that gets my attention is I'm a twin, like our beloved Rabbi David. So twins, see?
Twins.
No,
and I have twins.
Yeah, right? And you have twins, so. Yeah, well, this figures in my tale, I'm afraid, because I had the privilege of picking my Hebrew name, and I went with Yaakov, with Jacob, for a lot of reasons, and partially because of what we're reading here, blessings and burdens. And so my family was happy about it, except for my twin brother. He was like, wait, you calling me Esau? Like, are you giving me a name I don't want? And we actually had to talk about it. Yeah. We're both Jacob, we're both Esau.
Let Yaakov speak.
So anyway, with this introduction, I got a little obsessed with twins in the text and interpretations of twins, coming back to agency. And I can't remember the author, I'll try and find it. But there was a commentator who said that the reason the text gives us twins is to remind us of our own human agency, because the interpretation is you have one person and they are kind of divided by this sequence of choices that they make. So it's like one person going down two different timelines in the same life. Wow. And what distinguishes them is their choices, because the same nature, the same nurture in theory, and it's just, you know, we all have these doubles who make the choices we didn't, or had the opportunities we didn't have, or, you know, doppelgangers, shadows, animas, you know, there's a lot of psychology to it. But basically the reason the Torah gives us twins is to remind us of agency, that one person becomes many people through the choices that they make. Even with so much inheritance and so much prophecy, twinning is somehow a recovery of agency. So that's what I said to my brother anyway.
Could have done this and could have done that, and let's see how it turns out.
Yeah, and you kind of
book like that. That's really interesting. Very cool. Okay, thank you. That's really beautiful. And there is a question with all this sort of, you know, future implications and consequences and the burden from the past, like where is the freedom?
Where's the freedom?
Right?
Where's the what?
Freedom. And if you do feel any sense of freedom with all that, it's sort of a miracle.
Wow.
Right? I think. Right? And
I'm reminded of Richie Havens' amazing song, Freedom, where he alternates freedom with sometimes I feel like a mother's child.
Yeah. All right. Paul, last comment. Rachel, do you also want to say something before when I told you couldn't talk?
Isaac remains passive.
Isaac doesn't remain passive. Isaac is passive in this scene.
But he was passive when he let.
But there are plenty of passages in this parsha, which Vasya and I talked about last night, where he redigs his father's well, and he becomes very rich, and he's a great man, and there's plenty of things he does that aren't passive. So yes, he is passive here because he suspects that it's Jacob. He goes, "Who are you, my son?"
Okay.
And he says, "Esau," and he suspects, and he goes, "Come here, let me feel you." Right? So he clearly is skeptical and does nothing about it. You know how like that voice in the back of your mind is bugging you and like, why aren't you listening to it? That's this. Okay, Paul.
Jacob and Esau are not twins. They are two individuals that happen to be in Rivka's womb at the same time.
Wait, that happened to be what?
Happen to be, they are two utterly different individuals
Mm-hmm.
that happen to be in their mother's womb at the same time.
Uh-huh.
They are in no way identical. They're in no way even similar. They have,
Since when are twins presumed to be similar?
well, most twins, they're either fraternal or
No,
identical.
oh, but that's.
No, but you're talking about who they are.
I'm talking about who they are. What I'm asserting that they are not in any way twins. They just happen to be nearly proximate in their birth. They are from the same mother and father. But they are not of any.
Okay, go on. So you're saying that they're not like each other, and that's relevant because.
Well, I'm responding to what Tomas had to say, and their death